Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Jackson. When people hear that I saw my ex-wife for the first time in 4 years, right there at our son's graduation, they usually imagine the feeling will be magical. But there was no deep breath of victory, no wave of relief or feeling of, finally she saw what she lost. It just reminded me of everything I had to survive. Everything I had to rebuild after she tried to leave me in pieces. But before I talk about that moment, I need to take you back to the very beginning. Because this story didn't start at that graduation. It started years before. It started in New Orleans. It started the night I met Isla. I had traveled to New Orleans to visit my best friend, Marcus. He just opened a small but promising bar right there in the French Quarter. If you know that part of New Orleans, you know it's got this energy. That night, we decided to check out a late-night jazz club not too far from his bar. Just a little downtime to unwind and catch up. We got a table near the stage, ordered some drinks, and just sat back enjoying the music. Everything was chill, until I noticed this beautiful lady. She was sitting alone at the bar. At first, I just watched quietly, thinking maybe she was waiting on someone. But after a few songs, Marcus leaned over and said, "Go on, man, say something, you've been staring for 10 minutes. I figured, why not? Worst case, she brushes me off and that's that. So I walked up and said something simple. To my surprise, she turned, smiled, and responded like we'd already been talking. Her name was Isla. She told me she was in town from Dallas for a marketing conference that had just wrapped up. She wasn't much of a drinker. But the jazz club had caught her attention on her walk back to the hotel, and she figured one drink wouldn't hurt. We ended up talking for hours, I'm not exaggerating. It felt like we'd skipped all the awkward get-to-know-you stuff and gone straight into the part where people just click. We laughed, swapped stories, and talked about music, work, and random things. Before we knew it, the club was closing for the night. She looked at her phone and said she had to catch an early flight back to Dallas in the morning. Neither of us wanted to end the conversation. But we knew the night was winding down, so we exchanged numbers. I walked her out, we said our goodbyes, and she disappeared. Like someone you weren't sure you'd ever see again, but you hoped you would. At the time, I didn't think much of it, just a good night with a good woman. But looking back now, that night at the jazz club was the beginning of something way deeper than I ever expected. After that night in New Orleans, things between Isla and me didn't just fizzle out like most chance encounters. We began texting daily, making late-night calls, and checking in on each other, no matter how busy life got. It didn't take too long before we both admitted that we had feelings for each other. So we began a long-distance relationship, and it wasn't easy. I mean, being in love with someone miles away is tough, but somehow we made it work. After months of calls and weekend visits, I made a decision that would change the course of everything. I packed up and moved to Dallas. I wanted to be where she was. When I got to Dallas, life felt full of possibility. The early days were like a dream. We were in sync. Isla was driven like no one I'd met before. She'd stay up late working on presentations or taking business calls after hours. I admired that, even if it meant late nights and occasional distance. I knew what her dreams meant to her. Meanwhile, I started taking on contracting jobs around the city. I wanted to create a space we could grow in. Our personalities were different. Sure, she was relentless, and I was steady, but those differences somehow made us stronger. Her ambition lit a fire in me. My patience brought her back to center when she felt overwhelmed. We didn't clash, we balanced, we didn't waste much time either. We made things official and tied the knot not long after I got settled. A year later, we welcomed our son into the world. I remember thinking, this is the life I had always hoped for. For years, it really felt like everything was falling into place. Sure, we were both busy with work, and there were late nights and tired mornings, but there was laughter in our home. This made even the roughest days feel worth it. For a while, everything really did feel perfect. As Isla started rising in her company, things changed. She was doing really well. Promotions, recognition, and more responsibilities. I was proud of her, but success came with a cost. Her schedule became packed, and the late nights turned into overnight trips. One trip became two turned into 4. She'd be gone for days, sometimes weeks when she was home. She was either on her laptop catching up on work or too tired to talk. She wasn't the same Isla I used to come home to. It felt like I was living with a colleague, not my wife. At the same time, my own business wasn't doing well. I was trying to hold everything together. I buried myself in work, trying to make sure my company stayed afloat financially. So there we were, two people living in the same house, but in completely different worlds. The intimacy faded, every conversation felt like a business transaction. At some point, I stopped trying, because I felt like I was talking to a wall. One evening, I walked into the kitchen and overheard her on the phone. She seemed to be speaking to someone romantically. When she noticed me standing there, the look on her face said it all. We got into it, words flew and accusations followed. And in the middle of that argument, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Maybe I should just divorce you." The room went quiet after that. I stood there frozen. She stormed off, and the crazy part, I didn't even know if she meant it. We had argued before, but this was different. At first, I brushed it off. I told myself she was angry and didn't mean it. But then 2 weeks later, I got served divorce papers delivered to my office just like that. It was real, and it got worse. She wasn't just filing for divorce, she was going for full custody of our son, and the way she came for me, ruthless. She told the court that I was an emotionally unstable drunk, said I was never around, irresponsible, and unfit to be a father. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was the same woman who knew everything I'd sacrificed for our family, but she twisted the truth, exaggerated small things, and flat out lied. It was like she had turned into someone else. I tried to fight it. I had things to show I was involved in my son's life and supporting the family, but the judge didn't seem to care. It was like the decision had already been made before I walked into that courtroom. She won full custody. On top of that, I was ordered to pay a ridiculous amount in child support every month until my son turned 18. He was 14 when the divorce was finalized. For more years, the fallout, it crushed me financially. I was drained, everything I had saved was gone. My name was dragged through the mud. I was empty, a ghost of myself, and then a few months later, the truth I had feared was confirmed. Isla had been cheating on me. The same coworker I had asked her about. The late-night work sessions, the business trips, none of it was work, it was him. The betrayal hit me like a truck. I didn't even have the energy to confront her. What was the point? The damage was already done. With what little strength I had left, I packed my things and moved to a different part of Dallas. I didn't tell anyone. I just disappeared. I needed to breathe if I was to survive the weight of everything she had done to me. After Isla dragged my name through the mud and walked away with everything, she thought I'd drown in the mess she left behind. And maybe, just maybe, she'd never hear from me again. But I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her lies become my truth. If she thought she had won, then fine, let her think that. I had bigger battles to fight. First came the money. I was deep in debt after the legal war. My work as a contractor had slowed down, and my bank account looked like a bad joke. I knew I needed to level up, so I took on tough jobs. I started learning more about construction project management and picked up some certifications online, and slowly, the pay got better. I wasn't bawling, but the bills were getting paid, the debts were shrinking. I saw progress, and that gave me hope. Then came the emotional part. When someone you trusted, someone you loved, turns on you so completely, it messes with your head. I carried a lot of anger in those early months. I felt like less of a man. Like maybe I had failed as a husband or a father. I didn't know how to unpack any of that alone. So I went to therapy. I also leaned on the few real friends I had left. They reminded me who I really was, and bit by bit I got my balance back. Physically, I made myself a promise. I wasn't going to look like what I'd been through. I started small, cut out junk food, started walking every morning. Then eventually hit the gym. The first time I looked in the mirror and saw my progress, I smiled. Now through all this, there was one thing I never let go of, my son. Even though I wasn't allowed to be around him much, I kept tabs on him through mutual friends and family. Birthdays, milestones, school reports, I knew everything. I sent him gifts and left voice messages when I could. I wanted him to know I hadn't disappeared. And even though I wasn't physically present, our bond stayed alive. One day, during a call we managed to have through a relative, he told me, "Dad, I want to live with you." I told him, "Graduate first, just graduate, and I promise I'll give you everything you need and more." By the third year of my rebuilding journey, things were more stable, and that's when love came back around, through someone who had already been there. She had seen me when I had nothing. She stuck around, being patient. We started dating, and it felt natural. I told her straight up though, I'm not getting married legally again. I've done that once and I paid the price in full. She understood. She respected it. Soon, it was finally happening. My son was graduating, and he invited me. I wasn't going to show up looking like some broken man. So I went out and got a suit tailored just right. I made sure it fit perfectly, with sharp lines. I shaved, cleaned up, I bought him a Rolex. I know it might sound like an extravagant gift, but it wasn't about the price. It was about the symbolism. I wanted him to have something that showed this milestone in his life wasn't just a moment, it was a new chapter. The watch had his initials engraved on the back. I got there early, as I always did, preferring to sit quietly in the back where I could observe everything and everyone. My new partner was with me, sitting quietly beside me. She didn't say much, and that was fine. She understood the significance of this moment and respected the space I needed. This day was about my son. As I looked around, I saw that my ex-wife, Isla, was sitting right at the front. She was dressed to the nines. And of course she was sitting next to her new man. The ceremony went on like any other graduation. The speeches, the applause, the cheers. I didn't care much about the program or who was sitting where or who was acknowledged. My focus was on my son. He had earned this moment. But as the ceremony came to a close, my son took the stage to give his short speech for the class. I was watching him closely, trying to catch every moment of it. He looked out over the crowd, scanning the room like everyone else, and then his eyes found me. For a second, everything stopped. I could see it in his face, the recognition, the pride, the connection. And then, in front of everyone, he said it, the words that made my eyes watery. I want to thank someone special. I can see him at the back. Dad, thank you for everything. I know now, I'm proud of you. I don't think I've ever been prouder in my life. I could feel every set of eyes in the room shift toward me, heads turned, and whispers started. When Isla turned to look at me, when her eyes finally locked with mine, it was like everything froze. I saw it in her eyes. It was clear she didn't expect this. She thought I was gone, broken, a shadow of myself. But sitting there in that quiet corner of the room, I was stronger than ever. I had rebuilt my life piece by piece. After the graduation ceremony, my son, proud and confident in front of his peers, spotted me in the back row. His face lit up as he walked towards me. His gaze locked in mine. When he reached me, he didn't hesitate for a second. He hugged me tight, as if to say everything he wanted to in that one gesture. As he pulled back, a quick glance told me Isla was already approaching. My son dodged her attempts to talk to him, and she saw that too. I knew she'd try something. Isla walked over, trying to act like we were old friends, eager to fill the silence with small talk, but I didn't need to engage. So I smiled, I nodded, and I turned, walking away without a second thought. I didn't need her empty words. Months later, my son had moved in with me. He had told me he wanted to live with me, and I had promised him I'd be there when he was ready. The moment he turned 18, he packed his things. Layla, my ex-wife, tried to talk him out of it. Of course, she tried to tell him all the things a mother says when she's scared of losing control. Not long after Isla tried to reach out, I got a casual message from her, as if we were old friends catching up. It was one of those, "Hey, how have you been?" messages that people send when they know they burn bridges and want to test the waters. I read it, but I didn't respond, not because I was mad, but because I wasn't interested in playing her games anymore. She thought this was a way back in, but I knew better. A couple of days later, she sent another message. This time she tried to sound more reasonable. She said, "We can co-parent without being enemies." Again, I said nothing. I knew why she was reaching out. She was only reaching out because I hadn't crumbled under her weight. Her lies, her manipulations, because my life didn't fall apart the way she expected. Even now, months later, she still tried to find ways to connect with me. Though it was always about our son, she'd bring up his career choices and try to make it sound like we could be friends, but I wasn't buying it. Every time she reached out, I saw it for what it was, an attempt to keep some control, some tether to my life. I didn't need to say a word to prove that I'd moved on. You know, when I first got out of that marriage, when everything was falling apart and I didn't know how to pick up the pieces, I thought there was only one way forward: revenge. I wanted to make her feel the same way she made me feel. I wanted her to see me broken the way I saw myself back then. But over time, I realized something. Rebuilding your life quietly is way more powerful than any kind of revenge. You don't need to destroy someone else to heal yourself. Looking back, I've learned a few things, and I think I've come to understand the most important lessons through this entire experience. 3 lessons in particular stand out to me, and maybe they'll help someone else going through their own struggle. First, pain is a tool. Yeah, it's not just something to get rid of, it's something that you can either let break you or you can use it to build yourself up. When you go through a hard time, it feels impossible. It feels like the end of the road, like there's no way out. But if you choose to learn from that pain, if you allow it to shape you, it can make you stronger. That's what I did. I let that pain teach me. I used it as a foundation to rebuild everything. You can't erase the hurt, but you can choose to let it guide you to something better. Second, silence is strength. Trust me, there's no need to lash out, no need to get into petty arguments or revenge games when you've got a bigger goal in mind. For me, that goal was rebuilding myself. Silence isn't weakness, it's strength. It's about keeping your focus on what really matters. If you keep rising, if you keep doing the work, nothing else can touch you. And lastly, healing is quiet. You don't need to shout about it. You don't need to announce it to the world. Healing is a personal journey, and the best revenge is simply never needing revenge. The more I focused on myself, the more I realized I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. My healing came from within, and it came quietly. And when I stood at that graduation, looking at my son, I knew I didn't need to say a word. I didn't need to make anyone feel bad. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to my story. If you found something valuable here, something that spoke to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. We all have our own battles, and sometimes a story like this is all it takes to help someone get through theirs.